we are joined by our guy, Brad, from SF Niners. Brad, I just got to say before we get into any of these questions, I don't know if anybody was working harder. I mean, we had people coming to us, right, which was pretty cool. I can't lie. But I saw this man hustling. Everybody, I know we see you on the YouTube. Everybody that was following Brad, let me just tell you, this man put in the work. He's walking around with his camera everywhere. He was doing his thing. Then he was getting on buses to go do the media availability with the players. Brad, you really did it. I just want to give you kudos. I know that content came out outstanding. So I just want to give a shout out to you and thank you for being on the show.
I'd like to just say it was to meet you in person.
I appreciate you guys being able to link with you guys, seeing you guys on Radio Row, all that good stuff, man. It was quite the ride. I mean, I'm still recovering from those 8 days in Vegas, man, on top of the Super Bowl loss. So it's been a whirlwind, but man, yeah, I saw you guys grinding too. It was great.
That's what it's all about. And the last one that we saw was when Patrick Willis was with NBC Sports Bay Area, and we were wrapping up for the day. And Brad is just, kind of hanging out next to us. And Brad, we're watching this whole thing happen. And Brad says, I think I'm going to get him after he's done with NBC Sports. And we're all invested at this point. Not that he would say no, but we're just, all right, let's see it happen. And Brad goes in for it. He very sly.
It's like when your boy's like at a school dance or something. He's like going to go ask the girl. And it's like, come on, man. Like, I hope she gets it.
And Brad, Brad got it done. Next thing you know, you got that hit with Patrick Willis right after being named to the Hall of Fame. So that was outstanding. Great job, Brad. All right.
Let's
go. Let's go to, I guess, the game and your initial thoughts on it, where things went wrong. Brad, I've been seeing a lot, and I want to get your thoughts on this as well. Have you seen this luck metric going around? Have you seen the luck metric? There's a luck metric going around saying that the Niners were literally the most unlucky team since 2018, and there are numbers to back this based on lost fumbles and things like that. So, and this is from Data with Bliss, data-driven measure of luck, right? So in 2023, since 2018, there have been 80 teams, right? 80 playoff teams. 2023 Chiefs were the number one luckiest team based on these metrics. The 2023 49ers were number 69, including the fluke to Aiyuk off the Heezy helmet catch against the Lions. So I don't know what you thought went wrong, but yeah, it was a rough time for Niners fans. And it did feel like a lot of breaks didn't go their way, but there were some areas where they could have been more prepared.
Yeah, I haven't heard that metric, so that's really interesting. And, from the outside looking in, it does feel like they have been a little bit unlucky. And we know to get to that stage, luck is involved a little bit. You can prepare, you can plan, you can execute, but at the end of the day, the ball has to bounce your way on some occasions. And it feels like, the 49ers, it's been hit or miss in that regard. But to be honest, I'm looking at this game as more so, yes, there were missed holdings, there was missed penalties, there was those types of things. But in reality, these guys prepare week in, week out for these types of moments. And it felt like the 49ers had the opportunity in their hands. And if they did a couple things a little bit differently, executed a little bit more efficiently and effectively, they're walking away with the sixth ring. So, yes, we can point to unluck. We can point to missed calls and all those different types of things. But at the end of the day, you can't you got to take advantage and you got to take control of your own destiny. And you can't allow it, especially when you have Patrick Mahomes on the other side. You have to take advantage. And it felt like the 49ers kind of kept the Chiefs around. And obviously, when you speak of unlucky, you look at the Dre Greenlaw. I mean, I think the most unlucky thing imaginable.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the 49ers had a shot and they just weren't able to get it done.
Brad, before we get into the Steve Wilks stuff, I want to know your read on what was the big storyline after the Super Bowl with Brandon Aiyuk and the TikTok video and all these Instagram stories of, his friends saying BA to Vegas and how are you not going to treat your 1,300-yard receiver like this, and even BA himself saying, don't forget what got you there with some eyeball emojis. just what is your whole read on that situation with Brandon Aiyuk?
Yeah, Brandon and I have been able to kind of develop a relationship, through these things, and along with this team as well. So, it's a situation that I've kind of seen coming for a while, and we know that obviously Brandon Aiyuk heading into his final contract year, the 49ers picked up his 5th-year option as being a first-round pick,
Right.
so he's under contract for 1 more year. But as I see it, I don't think Brandon Aiyuk would like to step onto that field without a new contract, and rightfully so. But I also think the other element to it is he wants opportunity. He wants to be featured like a Devontae Adams, a Justin Jefferson. When you look at the targets he's getting compared to the elite wide receivers in this league, you're looking at 50 to 60 less targets than all these guys. And he was still able to put up nearly 1,400 receiving yards on around 60 receptions. So what he's been able to do with less has been remarkable, which is why he was an all-pro. But I think at the end of the day, yes, he wants to be compensated, but I think he also wants that rock. He's a playmaker. He's a baller. He put the ball in his hands. That's what he wants. He's like your prototypical number one guy who wants to impact the game very early and often. And, I think 3 receptions in the Super Bowl, I think that's stinging a little bit for him on top of the loss. That was an opportunity for him to go out and show out. And I think he just wants to be featured at the end of the day.
Talking to Brad, SF Niners, catch him on YouTube and all social media platforms. Yeah, Brad, getting into the Steve Wilks thing, let's start here, right? At least on paper, top 5 defense. Yesterday turned into, did you watch the Niners or not? That's how people are reacting. Was he a scapegoat for the Super Bowl? How Chris and I have really been breaking this down is that it was more of a culture fit, right, type deal. And I wouldn't say that it was a defensive disaster the way some people are making it seem. What were your thoughts on Steve Wilks and the Niners parting ways?
Honestly, not surprised. I think, Kyle kind of led us into that thought process on the exit interview when he didn't give definitive language that, Wilks would be back. And so you're like, okay, well, let's brace ourselves for something to happen. And sure enough, the next day we find out. And I think you can really you can go all the way back to week 7 against the Vikings. That final play at halftime where Steve Wilks calls 0 blitz and they go for a huge touchdown before half. And that became this huge
Brad, I've never heard a play in the regular season get brought up so much when you went to the Super Bowl.
Right.
It's crazy.
It is crazy, but it became such a big deal. And then you take that element and then you have Kyle Shanahan burning a timeout in overtime when he sees Steve Wilks in 0 blitz and he says, nope, we are not doing that in this moment. And I think you guys are actually just talking about this before the break, before we came on, in regards to the Kings. You're talking about trust, right?
Yeah.
You're talking about trust in the playoffs. That is the ultimate sign of not trusting someone to make the right call in a crucial moment. And that's all you need to know. And this isn't just a reflection of the Super Bowl. This has been going on all year, coming from the booth down to the sideline, all these different types of things, the way the players have spoke about it. It just didn't feel like a fit. And to be honest, even if they won the Super Bowl, I wouldn't be surprised if they maybe, amicably parted ways as well.
Right.
It didn't feel like it was a fit. We knew it was a challenge to take a 18-year defensive coordinator, plug him into a scheme that isn't his and a staff that isn't his, and try to make it work. And at the end of the day, I think it was a difference of philosophies, difference of opinions, and at the end of the day, Kyle needs someone he can trust, and it didn't feel like he trusted Wilks, especially in the biggest moment.
Brad, 2-part question for you. So first off, do you believe that the Niners did this having somebody already in mind, or is this a situation where it is quite literally just anybody but Steve Wilks would be an improvement in their eyes? And then 2, Matt Barrows released an article on The Athletic today with 11 potential candidates. Who do you kind of see? I mean, the biggest names are being thrown out there. Bill Belichick, Mike Vrabel. There's tons of names being thrown out there. Who do you think would be the right man for that job.
Yeah, I would have to assume that, Kyle is a very meticulous type of preparer for the most part. And so for him to be able to make this move, I would feel he would have to be having some conversations on the back end and kind of understanding who could line up. And obviously, when you talk about potential candidates, there are some big names. You're talking about arguably the greatest coach of all time in Bill Belichick, who's sitting there without a job. All the head coaching vacancies has been filled. He's a defensive mind, and they have a relationship. John Lynch played under Bill Belichick. You think of the Jimmy Garoppolo trade back in 2017, where Bill Belichick reaches out to Kyle Shanahan to get that deal done. There's definitely a relationship there. And I'm thinking of it like this from Kyle Shanahan's perspective. He is so ingrained and intertwined into the offense. I think he wants someone who can take ownership of the defense. And part of the move with Steve Wilks was he felt like he had to oversee, maybe kind of, again, make decisions and pay attention to what Steve was doing rather than just focusing on what the offense needed to do. So if you can bring in a guy that not only has head coaching experience, but also has is just a great defensive mind. And you mentioned Vrabel as well. I know 49er fans won't like to hear it, but Pete Carroll is an interesting
I've heard that name.
It's just interesting because he runs basically an offshoot. The 49ers run an offshoot of what he did with Seattle. So the scheme is similar. And he's been a great defensive coach in this league. He's the founder of the Legion of Boom, the architect, I should say. And hey, he coached for the 49ers back in 95, 96. So there's a tie potentially there. So there are multiple names. Obviously, the 49ers are kind of in a situation where they can pick and choose, right? Because there's no jobs available.
Yeah.
They got the one job. And what guys like Vrabel and Belichick, I think, need to kind of weigh out is, do they want to spend this season on the couch? Or do they want to spend this season in a defensive coordinator spot that has just produced head coach after head coach when you look at Saleh and D'Amico, and you just look at the 49ers organization in general? So I think that's what's enticing about it is people are like, oh, would Belichick want to do that? I'm like, well, would they want to sit on the couch all year? Are they in a better spot to get a head coaching job next year after not coaching at all, or coming into a win now kind of locker room and try to revamp this defense to kind of what we've known it to be?
Talking to Brad, SF Niners. Brad, the question would be, if Pete Carroll comes to the Niners, would Richard Sherman still ride for the Niners as much as he's been riding for the Niners? I don't know if that would continue. Brad, before we get you out of here, over the last 30 years, only one team has lost a Super Bowl and got back the next year. How realistic is it for the Niners to be the second team in 30 years to pull that off?
I mean, we saw how tough it was to just get there this year. I mean, the 49ers, 4 NFC championships in the last 5 years, and each season has been so different than the next. And, I'm not one that believes that the window is completely closed. You still have Brock Purdy on a rookie deal. That allows you some flexibility. Yes, you need to re-sign some players, maybe backfill some spots. You need to get a defensive coordinator. But for the most part, your core will be intact. And I think they have one solid shot with this core to try to run it back. It's going to be challenging. We talked about it at the beginning a little bit too. You need a little bit of luck as well. So it's going to be a challenge, but I still think the window is open for at least one more year. Then I think after that, when you're talking about paying Brock Purdy and you those other players are getting older and older, then you're going to have to think about some serious retooling of the roster. But I think this season they can go out and sign a big time free agent, try to extend Brandon Aiyuk, and make another shot at it. So I still think the window's open for one more year, but we'll see after that.
Yeah. Thanks for everything, Brad. As always, Brad, SF Niners. Catch him on YouTube. Catch him on Instagram. He's popping on Instagram. Catch him on Twitter, X, as well, all social media platforms. Brad, SF Niners, thank you so much. We'll talk to you again soon.
Appreciate you guys.